Order. My name is Matthew Pianca, and I'm here with Claude Phipps and Mr. Michael O'Connor, the zoning administrator Jeffrey Knight, and the city solicitor Neil Grover. I'm also noting the presence of a court reporter. Court reporter is here because the zoning hearing board is more formal than the planning commission. The court reporter is making a transcript in the event of the appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. The zoning hearing board is like a court of law. The zoning hearing board decision must be based on facts and law, not the popularity or unpopularity of the project or what seems to the board to be a good or bad project. In other words, the applicant must meet a legal burden of proof that proves the elements of a variance or special exception. The law is the city's zoning code and the Pennsylvania municipalities planning code. To the audience and everyone who resides or owns property close to the subject property and has something legally relevant to say will have an opportunity to speak. Audience members must speak one at a time and they must not interrupt the testimony that will be transcribed by the court reporter. We have a couple cases to continue that were requested by the applicant. And if I'm correct, that's old business 2533, 2534, and new business 2545. I'm going to make a motion to continue. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Phipps. All in favor? Aye. That motion carries. I'm going to call the first case, which is 2544. That's a variance of special exception application. We're going to hold on that for a minute. That's 2544, the variance of special exception application for 2048 Market Street. If the solicitor would please read in the record the documents that are in the city's file.
Okay, first is B1 is the proof of publication, Patriot News, February 12, 2023 and February 19, 2023. B2 is the letter sent from the planning director, Jeffrey Knight, to the applicant notifying of the hearing. B3 is the hearing notice posting on the property. B4, applicant's notification letters and proof of mailing to required neighbors. B5 is the application for the special exception and the dimensional variance with attached narrative. B6 are photos of the interior and exterior of the property. B7 are the plans. B8 is the deed that establishes the standing to pursue the zoning relief in this case. B9, Planning Bureau case report, and B10 is the City of Harrisburg Planning Commission resolutions. B1 through B10.
Okay. I'm now going to swear in the zoning administrator. Jeff, if you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You could please summarize the case, the issues, and what the city's position is on the case.
So yes, the case for number 2544 is a variance special exception application. The special exception application is to establish a multi-family dwelling within the residential medium density zoning district for section 7305.7 of the zoning code, and a variance for relief from the specific criteria regulation regarding the minimum floor area in section 7-309.2B of the zoning code. So the subject property had at some point been converted into a 3-unit property without any sort of permitting or approvals from the city, and the applicant bought the property under that understanding. When they reached out to us, we notified them that the property was only ever listed as a single family in the city's records, and thus that the conversion was done legally without permits. And so the applicant, while they are looking to establish a 2-unit multifamily dwelling within the property, they're actually kind of decreasing the density a little bit from, I guess, what it had been most recently operated as prior to its current vacancy. The property is large enough to accommodate 2 units per the per the density regulations in the zoning code. And they do have the required 2 all-street parking spaces per garage in the rear site. So it's a fairly de minimis variance in the floor area, as they are only 38 square feet short of the 2,500 square feet required of a specific criteria. The planning commission recommended that the zoning hearing board approve the request with the following conditions. The applicant shall allow the codes bureau to perform a comprehensive inspection and receive approval for all necessary city permits prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy and leasing units. And that's largely due to the public safety and health of the future tenants, to make sure that any work that's done for property previously was done by code. The applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to confirm the appropriate size and location of refuse collection on site and update the building accounts to reflect the use. I don't anticipate that there be any additional trash bins required beyond the single large one that would usually accommodate a single family dwelling. The Planning Commission recommended that the zoning hearing board approve the request for the following reasons. The variance being requested from the development standards represents the minimum necessary to perform relief. Given the interior square footage of the building, only a minor deviation from the zoning code is being requested. The proposal would not be out of character with the surrounding neighborhood, as several of the other single-family structures in the block have been converted into 2- and 3-unit multifamily dwellings. The proposal will have a minimal impact on the surrounding on-street parking, as the property is able to provide sufficient off-street parking on site. And finally, the subject property is in a blighted condition and has a long history of code complaints. The proposed project would represent an investment that will bring the structure up to code and ensure it is actively occupied.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. With the presence of Mr. Hobbs entering, I'm going to take a moment and make a motion to add him as a voting member to this hearing, seconded by Mr. Phipps. All in favor? Aye. Mr. Hobbs, welcome aboard. And now I'm going to ask the applicant to step forward, which you are here. And if you could please state your name, your residential address, and your business title, if applicable, if relevant.
Absolutely. James Baum, 335 Church Road, Shermansdale, Pennsylvania, 17090. I own the entity of property.
Larry Fry, 152 Lilac Drive, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm a contractor.
And if you both could raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And please tell us a little bit about your project here.
Well, we're taking what we thought, like he said, 3-unit. Found out that we couldn't do that, so we're trying to turn it into a 2-unit. It was a pretty run down building. Whoever had it before really let it go. We put a whole new roof on it. I mean, the whole place is basically getting completely redone. All new plumbing, all new electrical. It's going to be really nice and useful. That's trying to do.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
One question did I review this? When you acquired it, you understanding that it was a multi-family dwelling.
Well, you could see that it was used as 3 different units. And plus we were told from the owner that it was. I think you even checked into it,
But not deep enough.
we didn't obviously look into it deep enough. I think
Lesson learned.
we talked to an attorney or something. But you could see like the whole stairs that originally was a single family is not there. Like they completely blocked that off and put bookshelf. Like there's just no way to go from one without this. You can tell, and it had 2 kitchens, separate kitchens, everything that would allow you to believe that it was multifamily. So that's why we believe that.
My question is to go back. If that type of pumping electrical work, city showing.
If that had been submitted for approval to the city, the Codes Bureau would have that in their records, yes. And they did not.
Just looks like a reverse of other things we've heard. Instead of
Yeah.
more units, it's one less. And
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Hobbs, any questions?
Just a couple of things. So I think it was mentioned, that similarly, other properties in that area, just about that have been split, I guess, into 2 units. Is there any estimate of a count, like within a few blocks of this particular property? How many are in that condition?
So I just checked out the properties on the north side of the 2000 block of Market Street, because the south side's got some commercial units and I think one was like a funeral home. And I believe of the, I want to say 17 properties, 5 or 6 had been converted.
Another question, so this will be 2 units. What's, do you have any idea on what the rental rates would be for those, for each one of those units?
Whatever the going rate is, we're not 100% sure what the rent's gonna be.
So, but probably like just market rate.
Yeah, whatever the going market rate is, the allowance to get.
What bedroom size are the 2 units?
How many bedrooms?
Yeah, how many bedrooms in each unit?
So the upstairs has 3 on the first. Yeah. You got 2 on the, 2 and then 3 on the other one.
Oh, 3. Okay, that's decent size. Jeff, anything else?
No, I think when you go to the building, you can kind of see there's some construction waste out around and there are stairs on the one side providing access to the second floor, which supports the applicant's statements about the approval of the interior stairwell. So, from the city's perspective, this will be brought into code compliance from building code's perspective, and will create 2 and 3 bedroom units, as noted, are fairly larger than typically what we see when we see conversions.
Neil, anything from? I would hope. One more. Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna be 2 units, first floor, second floor. Fire escape, I know since it was dwelling, there's probably no fire escape in the back.
Well, there's 2 exits for the upstairs. There's 2 sets of, there's stairs he had talked about, and then there's a door that goes out onto a roof that has a set of stairs on it. Okay. There's 2 ways to get out. And same with the first one, there's 2 ways to get out of it.
I'm going to open up the floor to the audience. I'll start to my right. Anyone to the center? And anyone to the left? Okay, fair enough. And I'm going to make a motion to, one last question. Were you good with were you okay with the conditions that were set forth by the planning commission?
Yes, I mean,
Okay, didn't know if we did discuss this. Yeah. All right, then I'm going to make a motion to approve with the conditions set forth in the planning commission's resolution for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hobbs. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
can I ask, what do we do now? Do we need to go?
They will get you, or Jeff will get you some paperwork.
Yeah, they'll send you a signed copy of the zoning hearing decision. In the meantime, you can submit.
So we had gotten permits, but then they put us on hold till this was approved. Are we now good to go back to work, or do we have to go back down?
Yeah, I'll confirm with the codes bureau status of those permits and the process.
So we should call
Yeah, please call them.
in a couple days or,
Yeah, you'll hear from them this week.
great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Give a preference on. I don't know. All right, we're going to call 2546. This is a variance and special exception application for JMB Gardens. Just a note, and we'll put it into the record that the Mr. Hobbs is still sworn in for this hearing, and the zoning administrator is still sworn in for this case. Big packet, it's still loading.
That,
I'm still loading.
yeah. Especially with those color renderings. Large file sizes.
It's all the everybody they had to send mail to. Yeah, I'll take one. Thank you.
I think we might be set now.
You guys are set? Okay.
Thanks.
Then I'll ask the solicitor to read into record the documents that are in the city's file.
Application 2546. Okay, so there's B1, the proof of publication, Patriot News, February 12, 2023, February 19, 2023. B2 is the letter sent from Mr. Knight to the applicant notifying of the hearing. B3 is the hearing notice that's posted on the property. B4, applicants notification letters and proof of mailing. B5, application and the attached narrative. B6 are photos of the property. B7 are the plans for the project. B8 are multiple deeds establishing applicants standing to pursue the zoning relief in this case. B9 is the Planning Bureau case report, and B10 is the City of Harrisburg Planning Commission resolution. So it's B1 through B10.
The zoning administrator, please summarize the case and the issues and what the city's position is.
Sure. The applicant is proposing to construct 5 multifamily dwellings configured as row homes totaling 41 units and a community center, along with associated site and access improvements. This project will require the consolidation of the existing lots at the 4 separate sites into 4 separate lots. The project requires the following zoning relief: a special exception for development of a multifamily dwelling in the RM zoned parcels. I would note that this actually only applies to a very small footprint of the site, but because there will be construction on it, the zoning relief is necessary. A variance from section 7-307.13C of the zoning code to permit the removal of trees with diameters in excess of 12 inches from the property. A variance from section 7-3 or 7-327.9A4 of the zoning code to allow parking in the rear yard setback. And finally, a variation from section 7-307.3A of the zoning code to permit full encroachment into the 4-foot side yard setback for lot 4. So I explained what the special exception requirement was. The variance is obviously for the removal of trees, being that this is at various sites along the, I believe, 2200 and 2300 block of North 6th Street. The variance for parking in the rear yard setback, that applies to lot 1. That's the larger full block in the north and eastern corner of that intersection. That will have most of the row homes and the community center on it, and the parking will be head-in parking from, I believe that's Elizabeth Alley on that side of the project. And then both lot 3 and lot 4 will also have parking in their rear yard setbacks. And those will be accessed via Turner Alley. And then the full encroachment into the 4-foot side yard setback for lot 4. That's really necessitated by the design of the buildings, in that they're having 2 separate entrances for each of the unit, both on the first floor and the upper floors, as opposed to a single entry point and then internal access. And that's to kind of maintain both the row home appearance that's consistent throughout the corridor, as well as to give the residents themselves who will be living there kind of their own entrances, which I think the applicants will probably discuss a little bit in their testimony. So by virtue of having that additional entrance, that additional stairwell up to the upper floors instead of a single common area as you usually see, that kind of pushes the building out to the a little bit wider than it normally would be. And so they're fully encroaching to the setback. Of course, this is really consistent with the built environment along this corridor, where most of the buildings fronting 6th Street here are attached row homes. So there are no setbacks for many of the blocks north and south of this site. Overall, the project is going to end up developing what are essentially vacant lots at the current moment. I think lot 3 is fenced off with that white vinyl fencing you see here on HRA properties, but I don't believe the others are. And they tend to accumulate some trash. There's some parking on the vacant lots. So all in all, the overall project will be a significant improvement, and really in a kind of building configuration, siting and massing that will reflect much of the surrounding built environment. So it's going to blend in pretty well to the existing neighborhood. With that being said, the Planning Commission recommends that the Zoning Hearing Board approve the request with the following conditions. The applicant will receive approval from City Council for required lot consolidation and land development plan application. The Planning Bureau is recommending the applicant consider the minor change of having the structures on lots 1, 3, and 4 built along the property lines along North 6th Street, and the structure on lot 2 built along the property line on Emerald Street to reflect the setbacks of other buildings in the corridor. And I believe the updated site plans that were provided by the applicant do reflect this change. The applicant will retain full width sidewalks along the North 6th Street frontages of lots 3 and 4. I believe the applicants are agreeable to that. If the grocer's alley is running through lot number 3 are deemed to be public rights of way, the applicant will submit a street vacation application for their abandonment and receive approval from City Council. It's a little unclear as to whether those are just private alleys or actual public rights of way, known as grocer's alleys. It sounds from the legal, research that's been done that they are private, but I don't know that we've had a final determination from the Law Bureau. But if they are private, they would not need to vacate the streets. And then finally, the applicants will hold formal meetings with the neighborhood group prior to the submission of the land development plan. And I guess the applicants will be able to speak a little bit more to that during their testimony. The Planning Commission recommends that the Zoning Hearing Board approve the request for the following reasons. The massing and siting of the proposed development will generally reflect the character of the surrounding neighborhood and represent good infill development on critical vacant blocks on the 6th Street corridor. The project will result in the improvement of currently vacant and overgrown lots with affordable units that are a pressing need in the neighborhood specifically and the city in general, as well as a community center. The applicant advances the purpose of the CN zoning district provided in chapter 7-304.5D of the code, as it provides a mix of medium and high density residential uses, a community center and pedestrian oriented uses. And advances chapter 7-301.4A of the zoning code by protecting and preserving the existing neighborhood, increasing opportunities for decent affordable housing, and implementing the goals and strategies of the comprehensive plan. And finally, the project will construct affordable, spacious residential units in a variety of bedroom configurations that will include several ADA accessible units.
If each of the applicants could please, or each person representing the applicant could please state your name, residential address, and business title, and then I'll swear you each in.
Ash McCombie, 100 Pine Street.
Matt Witters, 161 South 32nd Street, Camp Hill.
Martina Hedit-Mimi, from Marks Architects, 27 South Main Street, Ambler, Pennsylvania.
You got it? Okay.
Ryan Sanders, 7 Jones.
Good. Okay, if you could all raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You start us off.
Thank you. Well, Jeff and I don't always see eye to eye, but I think you knocked it out of the park on that one. So we'll close our case and move on. If you'll indulge us on a presentation, we would appreciate it. Again, my name's Ash McCombie. I'm an attorney with McNeese, Wallace and Nurick. To my right is Matt Witters with Eustace Engineering. To his right is Martina Hedit-Mimi with Kramer Marks, the architect. And sitting behind us is Ryan Sanders with Vice Capital, the developer. Collectively, we represent Vice Capital with respect to the zoning application before you this evening for an affordable housing project. Presentation, I'll start with a very brief overview. Matt will walk you through the use and site improvements. Martina will talk a little bit about the design of the buildings, and then Ryan will touch on community outreach. We have 11 exhibits. I handed out a packet. We should be able to get through them fairly quickly. As to the question regarding conditions, yes, all the conditions are acceptable, and we've already addressed some of them to some extent. Just for clarification on the record, the 3 variances we are seeking that Jeff referred to are from section 307.13C, for the removal of some of the larger trees. Section 327.9A4 to permit parking to encroach into the rear yard on one of the lots, and 307.3A to permit side yards of 0 feet from one of the lots. We think that while affordable housing that's built in compliance with UCC and the zoning codes is great in any instance and beneficial to the city, we feel like this project kind of takes it up a notch and takes it to a different level. You'll hear from Matt and Martina talking to you about some of the features of this project that I don't think are normally affiliated with affordable housing. They're usually reserved for market rate housing. And so we're pretty excited about that. You'll hear about each unit having its own front door. Helps bring a sense of community, a sense of ownership to the neighborhood. The units are also larger than what PHFA requires for the affordable housing tax credits. And then we're providing a good amount of parking as well, so that individuals that need to drive to get to work have adequate parking on or very close to the site to get to where they need to be in case they work outside of the city. So if there aren't any questions for me, I'll call Matt and we can get. Matt. Good question. That's what's your position or role with Eustace Engineering? Senior project manager. In general, what do you do in that role?
Oversee multiple projects, every aspect of every project, civil engineering standpoint, site layout, site design, stormwater management design, grading, utility design.
How long have you been in this field, this profession?
This will be my 20th year.
When you design a project, do you review the municipal zoning ordinances, ensure compliance, or determine what zoning relief is required?
Yes,
Was that your role in this project?
yes.
And in designing the concept plan, did you review the city's ordinances?
Yes, I did.
Have you testified before municipal boards and zoning proceedings in the past?
I have.
Have you ever been denied as an expert in this?
I have not.
You can turn to in the exhibit packet, For the record, A1 was our application that was submitted originally. You can please turn to exhibit A2. What is that?
That's my resume.
And does it accurately describe your professional qualifications? I'd like to offer Matt as an expert in zoning analysis and site design. Thank you. Please turn to exhibit A3. What is exhibit A3? Aerial for the narrative. Please use it to orient the board to the property.
There are 4 tracks. Project consists of 4 tracks, excuse me. Generally located at the intersection of Sixth Street and Emerald Street. The red track, track 1, is a full city block. You have Curtin Street to the north and Emerald to the south. Access to that is both from Sixth Street and Elizabeth Alley behind it to the east. Track 2 fronts primarily on Emerald Street with some frontage on Sixth Street, and then has access to Turner Alley to the west. Track 3 is on the opposite side, the south side of Emerald Street, also frontage on Sixth and Emerald with access back to Turner Alley. And then track 4 is what we call an infill lot where we have access out to Sixth Street to the east, and then behind it again, Turner Alley.
Does this exhibit also show the vacant nature of the property?
Does, yes. They, all 3 tracks consist of, as it was stated earlier, open vacant lots consisting of lawn and a couple of trees on each.
Thank you. Please turn to the next exhibit. A4. What is it?
That's an existing conditions plan prepared by Mellon Associates.
Can you please describe to the board what's shown on it?
Sure. Again, all 4 tracks are highlighted in purple or surrounded in purple here with track 1 being the larger of the 4. It's got a call out in the middle of it. It says 24,656 square feet. Again, Curtin Street's to the left. Emerald's kind of down the middle of that particular plan, running up and down the plan. North Sixth Street runs from left to right in the middle of the plan. And then Turner Alley is at the bottom of the plan. Track 2 is in the middle of the plan on the left-hand side. It says 8,839 square feet. Track 3 is 11,036 square feet, and track 4 is that infill lot on the very right-hand side at 5904.
Does this plan also point out or label some of the existing trees in the property?
It does. You'll see there are a number of trees in the what I call the back of track 1 along Elizabeth Alley. I believe there's 12 there. There are 4 trees on track 2, 1 along the rear property line, the northern property line on the left-hand side of that tract, and then there are a few kind of scattered throughout the interior portion of that site. Track 3 has some trees. They're all less than 12 inches in caliper, and then track 4, I believe there's 1 on track 4.
Thank you. Please turn to the
Question first, while we're looking at track 3, is that the what'd you call it, the alley, what?
Turner Alley, the Grocer's Alley.
Grocer's Alley, is that what I'm looking between the lots that front Sixth and the lots, I guess there's 3 lots that would front Emerald?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what that was. Okay.
Kind of a big gray dashed line in the middle
Yeah.
of that alley.
All right,
Yeah.
so that's the Grocer's Alley, that's still somewhat in question, not that,
correct, and
Okay.
what you'll hear in a moment is that dash line is not actually there. Next to zoning district. or
Okay.
in the South.
okay,
So we think that that's how this kind of came to be.
so that, is that the only RM?
That's the only portion.
One sec. I'm good.
You like to hear him say?
Did you plant the trees?
I'm sorry,
Did you guys plant the trees?
which trees?
Any of the trees?
Oh, I'm sorry, none. No, we haven't.
Okay. I don't think.
Let me ask a question. Part of your plan is the removal of the trees. How do you answer a remediation question? You, after your project.
Yes, yes, we do. And we'll get into that when we get into the proposed layout. Thank you. Yeah.
Turn to exhibit A5, please, and describe that.
Sure, there's photos there, they're Google Street views of the current conditions of each of the tracks. The top one on the first page, the page labeled A5, is of tracks 1, standing at Sixth Street, looking northeast from Emerald. You'll see a couple of things there. It is a nice big open lot for us. Those trees that we were just discussing are sort of in the back there. There are a couple of street trees that we're not planning on touching, and I did want to point out that the yellow shapes in the middle of that picture, between the two street trees, are an existing bus stop. The bottom picture is, we turned 180 degrees on Sixth Street. We're looking west towards Turner Alley, which is in the background. Emerald's on the left-hand side, and this is track 2, directly across from track 1. And again, there's a bus stop in the foreground. Second page, again, 2 photos, the top photo being track 3. This is looking from from Emerald Street, looking south towards what we'll reference later as the barber shop. That's that kind of 3-story building in the background, the fences in the foreground. I would note that this is an older photo. They hadn't updated the street view yet. The city did install new curbs and new sidewalks kind of in the foreground between where we're standing and the fence there. The final photo is track 4, standing at Sixth Street, looking west towards Turner Alley. And again, that barber shop that we're going to be up against, adjacent to, is on the right-hand side. So our lot is that vacant lot. I think there's some cars parked on it right now on the left.
The proposed use is multifamily dwelling. Is that use permitted by right in the commercial district, by special exception to the RM district?
That's correct, yes.
Please open up exhibit A6, please. What is this?
A6 consists of 2 pages. The first page is of track 1. It's the proposed layout. The second page is the same at track 2 and 3 and 4.
Did your firm prepare this plan?
We did, yes.
In doing so, did you review and analyze the city's zoning compliance?
We did, yes.
What does sheet 1 depict and show? Walk the board through.
Sure. Can I stand? I'll show you on the exhibit that's up here.
You want to take the microphone?
This one on? Yeah, okay. So to orient you here, again, Curtin Street's on the left-hand side, Emerald Street's to the south, to the right, 6 at the bottom of the plan, and Elizabeth Alley is here at the top. We're showing our proposed building, which consists of 19 single-family dwelling units. The building itself is a mix of 2- and 3-story. We'll get into some of the layouts later on about the interior. That site is where that building as well. At the south end, we're going to put a community center on the first floor. 6th Street, give us a nice presence of that intersection. That was really something that we discussed as a team and discussed with Planning Bureau as well. We are proposing 21 parking spaces. Again, as Esh mentioned, head in from Elizabeth Alley with 3 ADA spaces and 18 standard spaces. We'll have new sidewalk along the rear. You can't see it because of the trees. For access around the building to get to the front. As Esh mentioned, each of these units is going to have their own front doors. That's why you see a number of front doors along 6th Street. And each of these will have an overhang, a canopy, not shown here, just for clarity purposes. We are proposing to replace each of the trees that we're going to take down. So take down 12, put 12 up, that type of thing. We're proposing the perimeter screening landscaping that's required also around the site. And we're also going to add and propose stormwater management facilities. We're going to do an underground basin likely on this particular site underneath the parking lot.
And this, you can step there for a moment, please. This entire site is in the CN district, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
And will it be served by public sewer and water?
It will.
And how about trash? How's it being handled?
Trash will be individually handled. Each unit will have their own trash receptacle put out at the curb.
Is that how trash will be done throughout the property and all the units?
For each of the 4 units or 4 tracks.
Thank you. And you mentioned 21 parking spaces with 3 ADA spaces. Could you discuss the variance that's required a little bit more?
Sure. In order to make this building as efficient as we could for the affordable housing aspect, from a cost standpoint, the parking, instead of doing a centralized parking lot off of the alley with some sort of narrow driveway in, we decided to sort of mimic what's going on in the surrounding neighborhoods on some of the parcels with direct access right off of Elizabeth Valley. The setback requirement is that we're not allowed to put parking within any of the side, rear, or front yards. And we are encroaching into the rear yard setback, which is a 10-foot setback along the alley by 6.87 feet.
And so backing out into an alley like this is fairly common along Elizabeth Alley and in the area.
Yes,
Does the parking itself encroach into the right of way?
does not.
The parking surface. Is it concrete? Surface?
As of right now, it'll be just standard asphalt. We are still working through our plan development and our stormwater management. This will be an NPDS project, so we'll have to submit to the County Conservation District for DEP NPDS permit.
Probably got to agree.
Yep.
That's a great question about stormwater. So you mentioned it would be underground. Can you point out kind of the pervious areas of the property and describe how it lines up relative to what's required by the ordinance?
Sure. Pervious, and it's tough to see again. Pervious area of that rear and side of the side of the center. Not looking at the plan that we are within conformance of the maximum allowable impervious cover in this particular district.
Yes, we are.
You're looking for wire and all around over.
As of right now, we've actually talked to PPL about what we're going to do out here. We're going to put poles in and put transformer mounted poles up, given the lack of space. And we'll have that, then the electrical feeds will then go underground from there and feed each of the units will be metered separately. And that'll be all 4 tracks will be like that.
It's a little small on the plan to read, but would you disagree with me if I told you that the maximum permitted impervious coverage is 95% and this track is proposed to have approximately 78%?
I would agree with you. Dan.
And other than the variance for removing some trees and encroaching into the rear setback, does this track otherwise comply with the requirements of the zoning?
It does.
Have there been any changes to this site plan since we originally submitted it?
There have been, based on conversations with the Planning Bureau in our Planning Commission meeting last month. We were requested and absolutely went through with it. We moved the building up against the front right of way along both 6th Street and Curtin Street. And that was to mimic the sort of the building presence in that neighborhood now. In doing so, we had some trees proposed out front, so we back of the site. And there was some small shrub landscaping that was required out front that is now no longer required because of having no space between the right of way and the fronts of the units.
Please turn to the next sheet. What does it depict?
This depicts, it's the same type of plan. It's the rendering for tracks 2, 3, and 4.
And could you orient the board and then tell the board what zoning district each track is in?
Sure. 6th Street's on the top of the plan. Turner Alley is at the bottom of the plan. Emerald Street runs north and south, up and down the plan, right down the middle. Track 2, which is the tract on the left-hand side, consists of 8 units, 8 affordable housing units. It is 100% CN district. It's commercial neighborhood district. Track 3 is in the center of the right hand side. Affordable housing units in the middle, and that all the way on the right hand side of the plan, and that is 100% CN.
And approximately, or how many stories are these buildings?
They vary from 2 to 3 stories.
These are also going to be served by public sewer and water.
That's correct.
Could you point out and kind of talk through the green space a little bit?
Sure. Again, we tried to make these as efficient as we could, but also provide for some green space for the residents as well. track two, the building and moved it up against the right of way line on both Sixth Street and Emerald Street, which created a little bit more backyard space. And then we have at the south end, I'm sorry, the west end, the bottom of the plan. We've got a little bit of open space down there, some yard space. Track three, again, we slid the building up closer to the right of way. And again, this is based on conversations with the planning commission and planning bureau. Which created some green space in the back there as well. And then on track four, we slid the buildings up against the right of way again and generated a little bit more yard area in between where we are proposing 4 parking spaces in the rear to serve those 4 units.
And do these 3 lots comply with the requirements of the town of the city zoning ordinance?
All with the exception of why we're here tonight, yeah.
And can you talk the board through, we've already talked about the trees. Can you talk the board through a little bit more on lot 4 and how it abuts up to the lot lines?
Sure, and you can see on that rendering, that existing building. Again, as I pointed out, in order to provide multiple angles, the units, the over under units. We had to make this a little bit wider to keep up with some of the PHFA regulations as well. So again, on that left-hand side of track 4 is where we're talking about having to place our building, build our building up against the existing building, which is on the southern lot line. Their southern lot line.
Thank you. I was trying to find some information on the plan and may have missed if you said it. Did you talk about building 3 being flipped?
Oh, yes, as a result of the planning commission meeting and some discussion with planning bureau. Track 3 originally was flipped. It's kind of hard to see here. But we had a driveway coming off of Sixth Street with a curb cut and a driveway apron and 5 proposed parking spaces behind the building. So there, we had a lot of really narrow parallel space lot that connected Sixth Street back to Turner Alley. Again, in order to mimic and maintain the feel of the neighborhood, everything got pushed up to the right of way, and there was some concern about the safety of pedestrian and vehicular crossing, especially along this walking corridor of Sixth Street. So we eliminated the need for the curb cut along Sixth Street and got rid of that entire parking lot and are now proposing 2 ADA spaces off of Turner Alley, again, which opened up a lot of usable yard space for our tenants.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm looking at your lot 3 and lot 4. So you're 2 ADA spaces, but you're proposing 10 units. How do you address the parking?
They're gonna use on-street parking within Emerald Street and along Sixth Street.
Yeah, so in the CN district,
Off-street parking is not required. It's only required in the RM district. And for the portion of track 3 in the RM district, a total of 2 spaces would be required.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Are there any amenities, like little pot lot or gazebo?
We had
Uh,
talked about kind of maybe emphasizing the intersection at Sixth and Emerald, in front of the community center. So maybe doing something a little bit, out front here, this little courtyard area, but that's still sort of in the works, kind of discussion level stuff.
The planning department has also offered some suggestions, more specifically for the backside of track 3.
Mhm.
And I think as the project progresses and we continue to have conversations with stakeholders, we'll start to flesh that out. But for now, we're just thrilled that there's some space available for that type of stuff.
I thought it was a PHFA requirement. That there'd be some sort of amenity, but I could be wrong.
There's the
Oh, yeah.
community center.
Oh, the community, yeah,
Yep.
but I thought there was an outdoor activity, but
There is a small pocket park that
that's what I was looking for.
But
Yeah.
as stated, since we think the change over the lot 3, there is extra amount of space back there and we can potentially provide something else for the community residents as well to what we were talking about is doing additional space for that.
Yeah.
One question I had is, I'm looking at your lot 1, you're providing parking, but you're only paying for transportation. Was any consideration given to that at all? Okay, that is plus there's a major transportation.
in terms of reducing parking or? Yeah, so it is,
There is more parking provided than what is required under the ordinance. Obviously, the CN district doesn't require any. But kind of going back to my statements at the beginning of the presentation, we wanted to provide a little bit more. You know, the units are larger, everybody has a front door. We want to make sure that if somebody has a vehicle, they're able to park to get to their job off-site. Good question, thank you. Yes, usually we're working the other direction, right? Trying to find a way to reduce it. I understand that.
No, sure. Citizens, thank you for that one. That's the biggest, one of the biggest issues. Parking.
I think that covers everything on these plans. So in general, then do lots 1 or 2, 3, and 4 also comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance and specifically the CN and RM district, except for variance requested?
They do, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions on this exhibit before we flip the page? Please flip to exhibit A7. Matt, what is this? And is it consistent and essentially the same thing as the rendered plan we were just looking at, just not as pretty? So this supplements the original site plan that was submitted with the application and recognizes the changes that were made at the request of the Planning Commission and Planning Department. Is that correct? That's correct. Thank you. You mentioned before that multifamily is permitted by special exception in the RM district. Why was that relevant? We touch on the notch.
Again, there are 3 lots in the back. Back up there, that's fine. As I pointed out earlier, that there are 3 existing lots that are separated by that called a paper alley or grocer's alley that we were discussing earlier. And like I said before, the dashed line that's on that second exhibit shows there's lots in the back that are required, the RM district applies to.
Thank you. And so stay up there, sit down wherever you're more comfortable. Being permitted by special exception, is that pursuant to section 305-7A, subject to the specific criteria in section 309-2V?
Yes,
And does section 309-2V apply to converting existing dwellings to a multifamily dwelling such that it's not applicable here?
that's correct. It's not applicable.
And then we'll quickly run through the general special exception criteria for the record. In your opinion, will the use be in conflict with other city ordinances or state and federal laws?
No,
Will this multifamily housing create significant public hazards?
no,
Will it significantly negatively affect the character of the neighborhood by creating heavy truck traffic or odor or noise nuisance?
no,
Did you implement adequate site design methods for lighting, landscaping, et cetera, to avoid significant negative impacts on adjacent uses?
yes,
Sections 331 deals with environmental standards for wetlands, steep slopes, et cetera. Are any such features on the property?
no,
Does the use generally require the use of significant hazards like explosions, fires, biological, biogenetic, or toxic hazards?
no,
As to the variances, narrative explains that there are few similarly sized and located lots near the property on which affordable housing can be developed without demolishing existing homes. Do you agree with that statement?
I do.
In your opinion, are the variances necessary for the reasonable redevelopment of the property?
Yes,
The applicant create the hardships associated with the property?
no,
Will the variances be detrimental to the public welfare?
No.
In your opinion, will they alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district or substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of adjacent property?
no,
Are they the minimum to afford relief?
yes,
Have you reviewed the narrative that was submitted with the application?
I did, yeah,
To the extent applicable, do you adopt the comments made therein as your own?
yes.
I'd like to admit exhibits A1 through A7, and then if there's any further questions for Mr. Witters.
Yes, I apologize. But I make a motion, you're certified as the expert, so we need to know that. Yes. So I make a motion to discuss my expert testimony.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. That was a motion to accept Mr. Witters as an expert.
Thank you.
And now,
Exhibits.
well, I'm gonna make the motion to accept exhibits A1 through
7.
Seven. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hobbs, all in favor? Aye.
One question. Just one question of the studies. Everything we built now looks. It's proud and it looks like this. It looks like something on Chicago, out of Chicago downtown, a new building. Is that just the way you're building now, like, you know, what space? I'm just curious, so downtown Philadelphia, I've been down, how it's watched it, everything back out. Oh, looks.
Fortunately, our next witness is the architect and she'll be able to speak to that a little bit for you, hopefully. Any other site design questions, I guess, for Matt?
All right.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Martina, would you please state your name, company name, and business address for the record?
Sure. Martina Hedetnimi, Kramer Marks Architects. Address is 27 South Main Street, Ambler, Pennsylvania.
What's your role with Kramer Marks?
I'm an architect and work as a project manager for the company.
How long have you been in this profession and design and project?
I have been in architecture for 16 years and at Kramer Marks for 10 years.
Approximately how many housing projects?
From start to construction, somewhere about 15 total projects.
And have those involved PHFA or similar governmental funding or tax credits?
The majority.
And is this project designed to comply with PHFA requirements?
Yes, that is correct.
Pull out exhibit A.
That is my resume.
Is it accurately described the professional qualifications
Yes.
to offer Martina as an expert in multifamily and affordable housing?
And we'll get this right this time. I'm gonna make a motion to accept Ms. Martina please,
Hedetnimi.
as a expert witness, seconded by. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Please now turn to exhibit A9. What is it?
That is a rendering of the building facing, it's the corner of 6th Street and Emerald. You're looking at the entrance to the community building and then off to the left-hand side are the entrances into the individual dwelling units.
Is this an exact depiction of what the building?
No, this is schematic level. We need to work through it during CDs.
Do you have any additional questions about the look of the building or?
No, it's just, yeah, no.
Thanks.
Also,
sir.
okay. Yes, sir.
You know, I'm just getting notes to it as well, so the stage where each apartment has its own door. It was important for us not to build a huge building there, and to ensure that we took the rhythms that were already existing in some of the other houses there, incorporated in the design, give it as much of a little bit as possible.
You're vacating that area of all over. I mean, all over the great deal. So that's what you're basically building. Thank you.
Please turn to exhibit A10. What is this?
Those are the elevations of the buildings.
3 pages?
That is correct.
Your firm prepared these?
Yes, we did.
Describe them to the board and walk them through it.
They are, the first one is the elevation of lot 1, mix of 2 to 3 story buildings, material wise of brick and siding. Below is another elevation of the community room entrance on lot 1. And further over on lot 2, the front elevation of lot 2.
And there's a sign shown on lot 1 for purposes of a complete record. Are we seeking relief or approval of that sign at this time, or is it just shown to give an idea of what might be at some point?
It's just shown to give a general idea. Signage will be in a separate application.
Thank you. And on page 2, please.
Page 2. This is elevations of the 6th Street. So the first one is lot 2. The second one is lot 4. Adjacent to that is the the barber shop, which we will be attached to. To get a general idea of height and what is adjacent to it, and then the 6th Street side of lot 3. And you'll notice we pulled out lot 2 and lot 3 to define, we moved the entry point of the 1st floor unit to these street sides of 6th Street. And we are making the elevations consistent with the other front elevations to give it the look and feel of a front entrance with materials and windows as well.
So is that done at the request of staff to give the North 6th Street corridor more of a front look and
Yes,
feel?
correct.
And in your opinion, do the proposed renderings and elevations match the character of the surrounding neighborhood?
Yes.
And if we could go then to the next exhibit, A11, please. This is our last exhibit, and could you please describe it to the board?
A11 is the overall building plan of lot 1. As you'll see, this is the 1st floor. Off onto the right is the community center, which you enter in, and there's a community room with kitchen and computer lab. And then as you go farther down the street, you'll see the individual dwelling units. It's a mix between 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. And you'll see in this building, you'll see some of the accessible and the hearing and visual unit depicted in this particular building.
So there are 2 accessible units, 1 hearing impaired unit. And then what was the term that you used for visiting?
Yes, so all the 1st floor units will be visitable. So someone in a wheelchair can enter the unit, visit someone who lives in that unit, use the restroom. And one of the important aspects is the 0-step entry, so someone can easily get into the front door.
Everything on the first floor, it's all 88 lines.
It's, I wouldn't say it's visitable, so you have like the clearances, but you don't have grab bars or a shower that someone could use.
Right. So the ADA accessible ones have the works, they have everything that's required. The rest are designed to allow somebody in a wheelchair to come through, but not necessarily live. And could you talk a little bit about the sizes of the units?
Sure, they are, as mentioned earlier, they're on the larger side of what PHFA requires. PHFA has sort of a range between 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units of what is the minimum and what is the max. We're on the closer to the max side. So for instance, the 1 bedroom, we have a range of like 845 for just the flat units. The ones that you walk up, you're at 940 square feet. Again, with the 2 bedrooms, you're at about 1,022 square feet. The walk-up units with the stair included are about 1,100. And then 3 bedroom, the flats are 1,300. And as you walk up with the 2-story, the ones with the stairs are 1,500 square feet.
Have you reviewed I'm sorry, do you have a question? Okay,
But I ask a question
sure.
and ask one, all the upon. Natural gas or.
It's electric. They'll all be Energy Star, so energy saving appliances. They will be, the project is gonna be net zero ready. So they will have, basically, they've done the energy analysis to make sure if they were to add solar panels, possibility. But from an energy efficiency point, these are very highly efficient buildings between insulation, appliances, HVAC.
It's all looking at the term work. Solar stuff basically almost easily the opposite.
We are looking at it due to the roof area. I don't know if we can get the full amount of solar panels required to offset that cost totally, but again, these are highly efficient. They are way more efficient than what code requires.
We're also in a comment on it using different materials because then have solar capacity.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Why not use the roofing material that had solar attached. So it's on cost, you can lay the roof out, solar cells are there, they would act as collectors. Again, it goes back to the affordable, your talk about affordable housing.
Right, yeah, and I think it's something that the applicant's looking into.
Okay.
But when you get into price per square footage of affordable housing, just based off of general requirements from DHFA, it's not, it's not inexpensive, to build these. So I think they try to do whatever they can to make it better. Yes, it's something like you said.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have you reviewed the narrative included with the application?
Yes,
To the extent applicable, do you adopt the statement made therein?
yes,
Lastly, I'll admit it is 89.
I'm gonna make a motion to accept exhibits A, was it A8 through A11? Seconded by Mr. Phipps, all in favor? Aye.
Are there any more questions for? Not the last week. Already stated your name and address for the record. What's your role with this project?
Acting as a representative with Vice Capital.
And you've kind of been running with the community outreach. Could you describe what we've accomplished to date and what's kind of?
Yes, originally we had a community outreach meeting planned for the 17th. It had an emergency circumstance with the actual owner. So what we did was we planned to do 2 events. One was on the 25th, in which we already had, in which we had several attendees that were there. And then we're also going to plan a larger one on March 17th, in which we'll be able to invite additional stakeholders from out of the community, politicians, and also the company's owner who will be there as well.
Questions for Ryan?
I'm just thinking, I know the group and the unit group that have, get hurt, they were united, they reached out to them. And that was all, you know, that very housing is on the corner of Clay and 6th Street, reached out to those people, because again, they're your neighborhood. And you got a new building being built, the old
Hudson Building,
Hudson building right across the street, so that's gonna be a lot of
critical mass.
yes.
Absolutely. So we reached out to several groups there. One was the Continental Group. We also, our partner on this project is the YMCA. For the community center portion of it, they'll be providing social services to not just the residents, but to the overall community as an extension of what they're already providing down the street. We also did meet with Ms. Rhonda Mays from Harrisburg Fair Housing Council as well. And as Ms. Laura Harding was able to attend the meeting on the 25th, and I for sure she'll probably be attending on the 17th, and she'll be able to make that Thursday.
Thank you.
So it's a PHFA funded, any home funds or project-based vouchers going into this to service under what PHFA?
Absolutely. There are a number of project-based vouchers. I believe there are 8 total onto this project. And currently this is being funded directly through the 9% LIHTC tax credit, along with some Penn Homes funding. And then also the Pennsylvania Housing Trust Fund has donated monies to it as well. Yes. Great question. As a part of these projects, as you already know, there has to be that community outlet portion of it. And the staffing will come directly from the YWCA, and it comes from the revenues that are generated as a part of the overall stack within the project in itself. So it's a sustainable portion. And I believe it's about 2 full-time employees that we look to have down there, along with a maintenance person and also someone from the leasing.
And it's not stated, and maybe implied, we say affordable housing, this is from the property now for ownership. And I want to make sure I get that clear.
Absolutely.
You know, we've been walking around.
Yeah. And as
Yeah,
a part
that's
of,
why I asked about the project-based vouchers.
And as a part
it's
of-
gonna service
Yep, some of the services, we've discussed financial literacy options as well too. To be able to provide folks options to home ownership readiness. So give them the option of wanting to own a home or to potentially, continue to stay there. Not at this time, based off of the rules from the 9% LIHTC and how it's actually being financed. That's not allowed.
Like, it's not the same. It's Governor Square. Yeah, it's not the same.
We did meet with a couple residents as well too that came over from the Governor Square facility. And we think that with us being able to provide these units sooner rather than later, that individuals maybe from Governor Square may have an opportunity to rent some of the larger units to 2 and 3 bedroom units for families.
Yeah, so I did have a question kind of following up on what you just asked about, looking at things from a home ownership piece. I guess, was there any analysis done, with weighing options to do this type of construction or development here, to allow it to be units that could be actually sold to people interested in buying homes versus adding additional, spaces that are just gonna be for rent? And I just asked that because a lot of development that we've seen here in recent months is units that are only going to be available for people to rent. And as most people know, we have a growing issue with a lack of home ownership here in the city. I was just wondering if there was any thought or analysis on potential options that would work.
Absolutely. But due to the funding mechanism, it put some restraints that were on us. So as an added benefit, we wanted to at least provide the educational resources so folks can make informed decisions on how to potentially become homeowners. And I think that that's obviously an important piece of what we wanted to do. But we were all, obviously following the Harrisburg Comprehensive Plan and trying to meet the need for affordable units that were obviously clean and safe. And as Ms. Martinez stated as well, too, these units are fairly large for some of the other units that we've seen out there on the Harrisburg market. So we're really, really proud of the product that we put.
And are those, the sizes of the units that you mentioned?
Martina, would you be able to state? So I think it was like 1,500 for the.
Yeah, yeah, the 1 bedroom is arranged between like 845 to 940 square feet. 3 bedrooms are 1,022 to 1,114 square feet, and 3 bedroom are 1,331 to 1,509 square feet. I'm very glad I made this cheat sheet.
And it increased, like, generally stated in the guidelines, as you already know, the price per square foot. Overall, larger, that price per square foot obviously. But due to how we were able to finance this, we were able to cover those costs and we were providing those side of things.
I think those are considerably higher than a lot of what we've heard in recent months.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just saying that I think those are considerably larger than a lot of the other projects that have come before us here in recent months. So I don't know, that is, I think, a good benefit. And so 100% of these units will be affordable housing.
Yes, sir. That's another one of the benefits. I know a lot of the projects that you guys see that come before this board, some of them, they have a difficult time with accepting, affordable units. We thought that this would, match some of the needs of the neighborhood as well. And the fact that these properties have been blighted for over 40 years, that it'd be a great use for the neighborhood.
I was around the corner, yeah.
Sure, I might, a price point, and these are properties and, take consideration with the average income of the city, the residents of the city is, what are the price points when they want to three bedroom units?
Well, there are rates that are out there from the housing vouchers for the voucher portions of it, though. But the rates are standard, and I believe there will be anywhere between 30 to 70% of the median AMI. Okay, so that's kind of like a sliding scale, but we can provide those immediate details.
When it was the comp plan, I remember, and I worked on it. The price we had was over there, and it's over city homeownership. I think as you said, a lot of things that are in front of us. It seems like we're more here to put transit piece of the city. And like the future policies. We look at the one thing Harrisburg does not have, doesn't shy of. We've got a lot of things we want. We got a lot of. We're not landlocked. We've got opportunities.
And we've done an assessment, with every one of these projects, we do a housing study. And it's generally, a 200-page study, and we go over a number of different things from investment, size of units, and so forth. But when we looked at home ownership, the cost to build, especially at the time coming out of COVID, the amount that we would have to sell it for, we would need to have that subsidized. And we didn't feel as though coming to the city to help us subsidize the home ownership portion of it that would make it.
I'm just gonna ask, so with the community outreach, what has been, I guess, the general consensus, from those that you have interacted with?
Well, I think it should be more. That's kind of what at least I heard out of the last meeting in itself. And just to give all of the residents an opportunity to at least chime in. I think the idea of the project is nice, but people would like to hear, like you said, about the environmental plan, some of the services that we'll be providing there, some of the rental rates, or some of the questions as well. Also, the timing of the construction, like, hey, when are these, is this really going to come to fruition at the end of the day? So we think that, with providing additional community engagement efforts, that we'll have a strong opportunity to get this project done, and it'll be beneficial for everyone involved.
All right, I'm going to open this up for the audience. I'll start to my right. Anyone to my right? And to the center. Okay, just a reminder that 1 second before you start. Please state your name and your address, and keep it legally relevant to the, as of the court reporter. So, yes.
My name's Brian Mumal. I live on 2226 Fifth Street, which is a block away, and I own a property on the block to the right of lot number 4. I also own one across the Turner Street, borders Turner Street, or alley, whatever you want to call it. I have a greenhouse there. If you walk by, you've seen the greenhouse. My biggest concern, I do support the project. I think will be good for the area. My biggest concern is parking and the size of Turner Street. It is not a wide street. It is very narrow. City trucks have a hard time. I have a bush on the corner of my one lot. They run it over all the time, and so do other people. I have to put logs out in front of my lot so people can park on it. So parking is a concern. Camp Street is full, Emerald Street is full, and 6th Street, when that barber shop is full, 6th Street is full. So adding 41 units in that area and 21 spots with potential 80 plus cars. Harrisburg, I think, is a 2-car per unit. Maybe even 3. There are properties where some of these residents have 3 or 4 cars. So that's for me, that's the biggest concern is parking.
Thank you. Anyone else to the center?
I'm Pam Howard. I live at 2146 Susquehanna Street, downhill. And that's part of what I would like to talk about. Has there been any consideration of green or living roofing on top of the building as another way to mitigate stormwater runoff, but also the urban heat island effect? That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Anyone else to the center?
Hi, Laura Harding, President of Camp Curtin Neighborhoods United. I reside at 2246 North 3rd Street. My issue is really that, which I spoke about at the Planning Commission meeting, is the notice for this project. We did not receive notice. Some residents alerted me that they only received notice of this project and the meetings the day before the Planning Commission meeting on February 1st. Also, per the city code, as a neighborhood association, I alerted the planning bureau to the fact that we as a neighborhood organization want to be notified and request to be notified of all development projects that are, or applications that are submitted for our neighborhood. And that did not happen. And we submitted that request last summer. Additionally, I'd just like to remind the attorneys in this room of the rules for professional conduct. A lawyer should further the public's understanding of and confidence in the
I'm
rule
ruling
of
you
law.
out.
I am,
Out of order
no, I am not out of order.
with this.
Yes, I am not
You can-
out of
you can
order.
Comment at the end of the meeting. on that.
Okay, so
At the end of the meeting.
rule of law
at the end
and
of the
justice
meeting-
system, because
the
legal
end of the meeting-
institutions in a
Laura, at the
constitutional
end of the meeting-
democracy depend on popular participation, to
Order,
maintain and
Order.
support.
order. At the end of the meeting.
No, this
the
is
end of
not,
the-
I am speaking of the fact that we were not notified. This is not out of order. Stop.
Neil, were they notified?
To the best of my knowledge, they were
That-
notified.
I'm talking about that right now.
You just said you were.
Oh, okay, let me finish and then I'll explain.
Yeah.
If you
and
let me
The
finish.
chair
my
has made an
comments.
order ruling. Thank you.
Okay, a lawyer should be mindful
Chair
of
has made
the
a ruling.
deficiencies in the
Please stop.
administrative of justice and the fact that the poor and sometimes persons who are
Please stop
not
recording.
poor cannot afford adequate legal assistance. My point is that this is a quasi judicial body. You stated at the beginning of the meeting that this is a quasi judicial body and it's run like a court. So if people who are poor and cannot afford adequate legal assistance are not given notice of this, that this is a quasi judicial body and that they have a right here, then they're being deprived of their due process rights. And if you're not having public meetings, okay,
Within this area
okay,
that says that the
Okay.
meeting is tonight.
okay, Matt,
Laura,
stop,
Laura,
stop. I have a right to speak and
you
you're.
do.
And I have standing before this board, but you cannot dictate what I can and cannot say. So go back and
Yeah,
read. No, you
Yes, I
cannot.
can.
No,
I'm the
you
chairman
cannot.
of the board.
No, you
Yes, I
cannot.
can.
No, you cannot. No, you cannot.
I am the chair.
You cannot dictate what I say. No.
So can we, oh, just in order. So question, are there specific rules that are documented about what a person coming in the presence that she is cannot address during their time to speak? Is that documented anywhere?
Yes.
That is what you cannot. They do not bring their character into consideration. Not a human.
And the notice was addressed in the planning commission and the notice is.
My point is-
Right, I got you, but so with that being said, you're saying that it's not appropriate for her to bring up these topics at this point. Is that correct?
Especially when she was addressing the attorney, she can
I
address them.
wasn't
Okay, so
addressing a
so
specific
I got-
attorney.
okay, I got you. So when can she bring up the concerns that she's
At the end of the meeting,
at the end of the meeting?
end of the meeting. This has nothing to
Right.
do with the.
Okay, okay. So Laura, can you bring up whatever topics related to this specific application now? And would you mind holding the other comments?
My
that have been
only
deemed-
comment, which I was stating, is that this is a community that is underrepresented and underserved. And there are poor people who cannot afford the legal assistance to come before this body, and they don't know that. I was just highlighting the fact that this is part of the rules of professional conduct. And as attorneys who know that there has to be certain notice given and
Okay,
that there
okay,
has
but
to
that's
be
not
community
part of
meeting.
this hearing,
It is
but
part of
it's
this
not
hearing.
relevant to this project.
It is
I
absolutely.
have ruled it
part
is
of
not part of this, and You can speak to
There
the
weren't
lawyers and make a
meetings.
comment at the end of this meeting. Thank you.
It's
Now,
not, it is.
what else do you
relevant.
have to say about the building project?
There were not,
You say there wasn't notices, so you said there's a record that there are notices.
You have it in your packet.
So
and I'm saying that there was not adequate notice and that there weren't meetings held. My point is that there was a meeting held the 2 days before on a Saturday with notice given 1 day before. That is not adequate time
Oh,
for people.
Are you
to come.
talking of their public meeting or our public meeting?
If you-
That's, again, I'm ruling that has nothing to do with this meeting.
It absolutely
Thank you.
does.
you're talking about the meeting that suspended.
That Vice Capital was holding.
Yes.
Then I continue to stand by that has nothing, that is out of order.
He's saying, what he's saying is that's not connected to the process here within the city, is what he's saying. So that's not relevant to anything being out of order. Like, I thought you were talking about the notices that are sent out for our meetings. Now, if that were the case,
Then we would have a problem.
So that's something that they're privately doing as part of their organization. You know what I'm saying?
That out. That's the
So
only thing.
that's why he's saying that that's not relevant because it's not related to the hearings that are given out before our specific.
Right. We're sticking this meeting. There was plenty of notice for this meeting. There was plenty of notice for the planning meeting. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. We just stated, on the 17th, we have no problem at all. The owner of the company will be there. We look forward to it, actually. Especially as we have a, new site plan that we'll be able to engage and try to get some additional information from.
Is there anyone else from the center who would like to? Anyone from my left? Or did I think quickly that that's the legal of the variances and the special exception? Yeah, one more. Yeah, yeah. Very good. Okay. All right, we're gonna come back into session. And there was, in the public comment, there was a question about the parking, and a question about a green roof, and if you guys could address that as well. And then Jeff, if you could get again from Laura what her email address is and what she needs for her notifications, and a list. And Laura, if you could provide a list of your members to Jeff as well, and you could get it to the zoning board as well, and maybe we can make sure. Right, please. Sticky note on your desk. Please. Parking in Greenberg.
Sure. So I think we can acknowledge the comments and questions about parking. I think they were addressed during the presentation, that parking is not required in the CN. It is required in the RM, and the parking provided in the RM complies with the ordinance, but at the same time, we're providing more parking than what's required by the zoning ordinance. I think we received some feedback from the board that some may like to see less parking. We are trying to find that happy medium between, what's needed, what helps the area, and what's good for the residents. As to the roof, I think Martina commented that, she's looking into different options for that. But affordable housing certainly does not mean cheap housing. And there are a lot of costs associated with building structures like this. So some things can come and other things can't, but it's something we'll continue to look at.
Mr. Sanders, when was your next public meeting?
Should be March 17th.
With that, I'm gonna make a motion to approve with the conditions set forth in the planning committee's resolution to approve. Second. Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm gonna bring up our last. Well, that's not true. I'm gonna bring up 2547, which is a variance and special exception application for 2151 and 2161 North 4th Street. Pretty straightforward. Plug in. Yes. For this, I have a relationship with the
With consideration. Right, because you're not,
Yeah.
you don't participate or anything. You're a board member on the applicant. So that, whatever.
Explain to the applicant.
I think. Oh, yeah. So there are now, two members of the board. in order to be approved, they both would have to agree. If it's a split, it's a denial. I mean, it's a denial. So with that said, then it would be up to you. I can't guarantee though the next option would be 3 members or anything like that. But just to at least explain, what could potentially happen was, one is this board has functioned with 2 members for a period of time previously prior to these members, so, but it is up.
Yes, we will move forward. We're excited about this home ownership project and the 2100 block of North 4th Street. We'll move for recording.
Then for the record, Mr. Hobbs is still sworn in as a voting member and the zoning administrator is still sworn in or as a. The solicitor, please read into the record the documents that are in the city's file.
So it is the proof of publication, Patriot News, February 12, 2023, February 19, 2023. B2 is the letter sent from planning director Jeff Knight to the applicant notifying of the hearing. B3 is a hearing notice posted on the property. B4 is the applicant's notification letter, certificate of mailing to required neighbors. B5 is the application. B6 are photos of the existing conditions, properties. B7 are the plans. B8 is a resolution of Harrisburg Development Authority that extended authority to Tri-County as a potential developer to pursue the zoning. B9 is the deed actually to Harrisburg Development Authority. B10 is a planning bureau case report, and B11 is the city of Harrisburg Planning Commission resolution. B1 and B11.
Yeah, if you could please briefly summarize the case, the issues, and what the city's position is.
Sure. So in this case, the applicant is 5 single-family townhomes and along with associated site improvements. This project will require consolidation and re-subdivision of the existing 5 lots at 2151 to 2161 North 4th Street into 5 equally sized lots. Given the space constraints, 3 of these lots, units 2 through 4, will only be 16 feet wide because section 7-307.3 of the zoning code requires lots in the residential medium density district to have a minimum width of 20 feet. This aspect of the project will require a variance approval from the zoning hearing board. Additionally, the applicant is also requesting approval of a special exception for relief from the requirement to provide 3 off-street parking spaces. So this project is kind of similar to what we just saw and a little different. Obviously, it's much smaller and it will involve for sale affordable housing units. But similarly, it is taking what is currently a vacant lot or vacant set of lots that is kind of overgrown and tends to collect trash and refuse and putting affordable housing units on it. So, it's a fairly straightforward row home design with 5 connected units. The design of the buildings will kind of reflect the design of the units to the south along this block with having elevated entrances with stairs and stoops to access the front doors. The zoning code requires for affordable housing units 2.5 parking spaces, but it gets rounded to the nearest whole number. So it would be 3 total off-street parking spaces that they would require relief from. The planning commission recommended approval of the proposal with the following conditions. The applicant will receive approval from city council for the accompanying lot consolidation, subdivision, and land development plan application. So that's just the typical tying together of land development plan and zoning relief that we tend to do with these types of projects. And then the planning commission is recommending that the zoning hearing board approve the request for the following reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that they've met the burden for granting both zoning relief requests. The massing and siting of the proposed development will reflect the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The project will result in the improvement of currently vacant and zoned lots with affordable units that are pressing need in the neighborhood specifically and the city in general. And finally, the project advances the purposes of the RM zoning district provided in chapter 7-305.4 C of the zoning code. as it provides development at medium densities that will not adversely affect the stability of the area, and advances chapter 7-301.27 of the zoning code by protecting the residential neighborhood and providing diverse housing opportunities.
Thank you. If the applicants could please state their full names, their residential addresses, and titles.
Gary Lanker, Executive Director of Tri-County Housing Development Corporation. I reside at 2432 Aspen Way in Harrisburg.
Zane Geist with Integrated Consulting, Site Design Engineer for Mr. Lenker. My home address is 5 Winchester Court, Mechanicsburg, PA 17050.
If you both could please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Please tell us about this project.
Yeah, as Jeff mentioned, this is another affordable housing project for home ownership, as Mr. Lenker mentioned. In short, in relation to the zoning relief that's been requested for this, we believe that this plan represents the minimum amount of zoning relief that we could possibly move forward with, still using 5 lots on this development. Otherwise, we'd be looking at removing one of the units in order to meet the current zoning code for minimum lot width. And obviously, we would like to maximize the amount of units, especially for affordable housing project that can be built in this area, given that it's a vacant blighted lot at the moment. In relation to the special exception request, there currently is no rear access to these properties. As you can see faintly in the site plan there, I apologize, it is not a little bit more legible probably from the perspective of the board members. But there's a grocer's, a 4-foot wide grocer's alley that runs along what would be the eastern side or the rear of the properties. But the property line does not actually extend behind that. So between that and Atlas Street, there are a few parcels that are owned by the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority there. But currently there is no access permitted from, there is no access from the rear of these units directly to any sort of rear parking or driveways, etc. So we have requested relief of the off-street parking requirements via special exception.
This project is a replication of a project that we have gotten approval on Hummel Street, the 200 block of Hummel Street in South Allison Hill that we're getting ready to break ground on. Our organization has served as the city's nonprofit community housing development organization, going into our 33rd year. The majority of our work has always been done in South Allison Hill, but at the direction of Mayor Williams and her effort to have affordable housing throughout the city, we partnered with the RDA in acquiring this lot and are very excited to make an impact on a neighborhood on this particular block that is very challenged. Besides this new construction, we are looking at potentially some rehab work with some other properties there, but that's yet to come.
Rough street.
It is.
Any questions?
So I guess you said these are for home ownership, so that means as soon as their construction is complete, then they'll be available for someone to purchase.
That is correct. Our organization, starting last June, became a certified home buyer counseling agency. And we do work with the city and conduct one Saturday a month, an 8-hour class. So we are already having folks that are participating in those classes who have expressed an interest. Our clients are all those in the low to moderate income category, 80% less of the median income, and they will be sold to those folks.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, is the pricing going to be set for these?
Well, we have been fortunate to, we received a Department of Community Economic Development Keystone Communities Program grant in December of about $400,000. We will be seeking some additional funding from the city, home funds, And we also have an application into the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency under their FAIR program, which we will not know about that until later this summer. But typically, we do subsidize extensively. I don't know if you saw some of the good press we got a few weeks ago, but we completed a project in the 1500 block of Swatara Street that was ongoing for a number of years, completed the last 3 homes, a total of 16 homes on that block. And just as an example, those were single family homes, approximately 1,600 square feet. And in a public bidding, we paid the contractor $237,000 to build each one of those homes, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath on a crawl space. We sold those for $116,000. So that is what we do with the funding we get. We subsidize the cost to make it truly affordable for those purchasing. I'm not sure exactly where we're going to be with these homes, but that gives you a feel for what our history has been and how we do conduct the affordability aspect.
So are these, if I'm reading pages like 36, 37, 38 of the packet, which is, I think, the site design or the blueprints, it's a 2-story with basement.
Yes, this does have a full basement. Yeah.
Am I reading bedroom 3 is in the basement?
We have 2 of the units to make a little larger bedrooms because we are challenged at the 3 units, as a planning director referred to, 16 feet wide. We made 2 of the units. We took the 2nd and 3rd bedroom and made it 1 large bedroom and then put a bedroom in the basement.
Are they sprinkled?
They will be sprinkled, yes, to meet
Okay.
code, yes.
That actually answers. That was my biggest question.
Yeah. And with that, I guess, are there any concerns regarding having, finished basements with properties in that area?
No, we don't see any.
I think you're way out of the flood.
Yeah, and we will be actually building the units up. They're gonna be, 3 to 4 feet out of the ground. To begin with.
Any concerns with the conditions set forth by planning?
No.
Jeff, anything else to add?
No, just, one of the conditions, in the, planning development plan is, formalizing the grocer's alley behind these lots. And we're hoping that allows EDA access to the rear, because one of our first communications with them was, well, can we do 0 entry, kind of what the last project was doing. And, I think it's probably a little challenging given the topography of the site. And like I said, it matches the other projects on the east side of this block. But if we're able to provide that in the rear, then the properties will still be visitable. And so, we're hopeful that that'll be possible. But that'll be something that'll be discussed further with city council.
Did I see something in here about front porches or no front porches? Okay. Yeah, I did. Well, you read them and then everything takes place and then you forget. So, I'll open up to the audience. I can't see. Is there anybody sitting over there? No.
Just
You guys have any comments on this one? Yeah, please. And if you could restate your name and address, please.
My name's Brian Mimo. I live on 2226 North 5th Street. Not far from there. I'm familiar with it. Walk by it quite often. I guess my comment's more for the city and the planning aspect as far as Governor Square. There's a parking lot right there that the city redevelopment owns. What is the plan? I mean, obviously, parking is not as big a concern for me there because there's plenty of parking until something happens with Governor Square, if that makes. I guess that's kind of the big question for everybody now.
I mean, I can't comment. I don't have any information on what may be the future of that project is.
Are we talking using parking up there for down here? Is
Governor
that
Square is on Fifth, and behind Governor Square is a parking lot. Redevelopment owns half that parking lot, and it's behind these lots.
Okay.
That they're talking on the same level as theirs. So the Governor Square people have to walk down steps. They don't use it, but I don't know that there's a lot of occupancy there right now.
I don't think so. I walked behind the site when
Yeah,
I was taking
well, I-
pictures and
Trash has finally gotten cleaned up, so that's been nice, but that's, I guess, the only comment that I have is regards to that, but that's not really there.
Okay, I see, okay, I get you.
Laura Harding, 2246 North Third Street and president of Camp Curtin Neighborhoods United. So my question is, with this being affordable housing and only half the amount of parking being required per the zoning code for affordable housing, where is the hardship that you're granting and complete parking relief for this project? And if the Tri-County Housing Development Corporation acquired these redevelopment authority lots, why didn't they also acquire the lot behind that the redevelopment authority owns for parking? Because I've seen before many times where there isn't parking available, that if a parking is within 500 feet, that they can enter into some kind of agreement for that. So why didn't that happen for this? And also, yeah, that's it.
Laura, was the last part talking about other requirements for the parking? Is that what it was, agreement or?
My question was, if these 5 lots were acquired by the redevelopment authority and there is a lot immediately behind that's owned by the redevelopment authority, why didn't they also purchase or enter into an agreement to acquire that lot and or get an agreement from them in perpetuity that that lot would be available for these parcels, which we have seen before many times. That's something that has been discussed before this body many times. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I'm asking, what's the hardship? Like there has to be a hardship. There's already less required per the zoning code of parking per unit for affordable housing. It's half per unit. And then you don't have to have any extra for guests. So are these people supposed to not have any guests? I mean, there's a corner store immediately next to it, and there's also a church down the street where that's got to take up parking. So I guess people who need affordable housing don't deserve parking by the Tri-County's reasoning.
Now I understand this, but what I am advising them of is the reduction in parking is a special exception. And the variance is the one that dealt with the lot, so there are going to be separate considerations for you. So, but, you're going to look at them and apply, each to that, but not, looking at parking with regard to the hardship part, but it does have requirements, there's special exception requirements there as well, which brings in and commercial public parking, those types of things, but the hardship is the one that deals with the lots. So
Lot size.
right, and that's what you're gonna have to consider in these questions and evaluate.
To address her question though, with the redevelopment authority owning the lots behind.
Yes, so even though the planning bureau director affirmed that adequate public parking is available near along 4th Street and Emerald Street, he did suggest that we do have discussions with the RDA. We finally were able to connect with Mr. Davis, the executive director of the RDA, last Thursday. And, we are going to do our due diligence to try to work with him. He needs to speak to his attorney and his board, but we are going to try to do something there. But we feel we would like to still proceed with our request as has been presented.
Do you make it a condition that they get an agreement with the redevelopment authority for that part?
I understand why you want it. I don't think this board has authority to take a non-party and say there's a condition put upon them to act for this to go through. And the redevelopment party is not a party to this in any real way. They're not here, they're not represented. They can make the inquiry and the city can encourage the inquiry about it, but I'm just saying, I don't know, the board can impose a condition for a particular contract on the applicant.
They did it before for Dave Beckley's property on Sycamore Farm, Division Street for that synagogue. I've seen them do it. That was.
They ultimately had.
Can we put a condition on inquiring about it and like a proof would be email?
No, I don't think it's inquiring. I think, and the synagogue project didn't happen, by the way. I don't think the board has authority to tell an applicant that they have to have a particular contract with a particular party for a particular piece of land in order for their applicant to have the right to proceed. You can decide they haven't met their burden, but I don't know that you can put that on there. That is more of a negotiation that has to occur. But the city has every interest in not having the streets overwhelmed with parking.
What was the, you said there's elevation back of the, that's why you don't have a back end. At this moment, yes, we wanted to match as close as we could, the existing elevations of the frontages of the units along the rest of that block. So we have them elevated also as part of the building design, for an elevated front entry. In the back, there is terrain to work with from the back, and if one of the recommendations from the planning commission was to investigate ADA accessibility to the units. I think that's as part of one of those recommendations. We certainly want to look into being able to, one, improving that grocer's alley in the rear, and two, looking at maybe providing ramped access or of some sort, perhaps, for the ADA accessible recommendation from the planning commission. Okay. Thanks. I'm bringing up Google Maps. Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, let's go. We're gonna take a recess for a second. Talk about the legality.
Metal.
That's how you identify all properties. He got that, he must have got that right. And all of this corner.
The intersection of Woodbine and Fourth.
We don't have, we're not showing that.
No. Well, we have the extensive existing building.
Whether we get that parking or not. Like we did for. Whether we get that parking or not. I think it's. Yeah, we would just do decks with,
Because there's only two, like maybe two stairs above that, because we've said that the decks are coming out at finished floor, first floor. So there's only like two stairs or something like that. I mean, you could use it. It's not going to be that, you don't need a very long ramp to make that work. I don't know, I do have a create. So, because I think this is the legal position on that. When it comes to zone decision, I don't see what but they can go through the table and plans and say, you need to go do this first or whatever, like, on these records.
Does anybody know, sorry, Jeff, you might know too. Does anybody know if there's the other houses in that 100 block have off-street parking? No.
I don't believe so. I mean, they have the same situation as these lots, which is they don't front right on the Atlas Street. rear.
And then that lot that's behind it is part of the redevelopment authority, but it's used by that Governor Square. So I'm assuming they have some sort of contract.
I don't believe
there's-
so. I don't want to speak for them, but I don't believe that there's like a piece between those things at all. And when I was there was basically nobody back there. So I mean, it looks available. I don't know what's.
Yeah, but it's what I tend to agree with, how do you bring a third party in? One, not here, two.
Yeah, we do not know if there's a developer's agreement. We do not know any of those things for that lot. At the same time, there will be a land development plan.
Right.
Comes forward where conditions will be worked through with the applicant, and there'll be other hearings on it. And parking, as always, will be part of that discussion. Both to planning commission and the city council.
Okay. So, all right, then I'm gonna make a motion to approve with the conditions set forth in the planning committee's resolution to approve. Commission. Second, so all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is one more thing on the agenda. 2542. It's not showing up. We wanna, again, deny it. I'll make a motion to deny 2542. Seconded by Mr. Hobbs, all in favor? Aye. Fine. Laura, you wanna? Yeah. 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 She wants.
Well, my issue is that the conditions that are being set at the planning bureau are to have public meetings before the land development plan goes before the city council. But people need to have these meetings and have the information before coming here, because if they don't come here and speak on the record, then they don't have standing and they don't have any right to appeal. That's the whole point, is that they need to know all the facts before they come here so that they can make a decision on what they say here, and so that then they have recourse in the courts. That's my point. And, you know, just because I feel that it's being taken advantage of, that they're not being made aware and having the benefit of having all the information before they come before this body. Yeah.
Not trying to prevent this, but our meeting schedule is put up a year ahead of time. We know what our Monday meetings for the zoning board, that information is published.
Right, and Jeff doesn't post the agenda for the meetings until 24 hours before this.
That's not true.
No, it's not. No, it's not. He basically, I letters go out. Those letters go out, you'll find them, and so you hear for the same letter.
Right.
And I think, which is like 3 weeks before this year. It could be though, but I, like, if they.
Right, and they reduced the radius that it goes out to. It used to be 300 feet and now it's 100 feet. So for example, for this, with Tri-County, 100 feet is most people who don't even live here. They're out of town landlords that live in Brooklyn or Virginia. And so the people who actually might have to park down the street because there isn't parking and are affected aren't getting those notices. So that's why it's important to notify people like me who represents the whole neighborhood so that I can get the word out for them. And that's not happening. And like Esh has known me for 18 months now since I came before this body and had hours of oral arguments with him. He has my contact information. He didn't pass it on to Ryan Sanders to contact me so that I could schedule meetings. And it was this whole hoopla back and forth. And I, unlike everybody in this room, I was actually elected to represent my community. In fact, I was just recently reelected, and I take the advocacy for my community very seriously, as you can all tell, even though Neil thinks I'm intolerable. But I mean, like, well, we're not on the record anymore, so I.
Oh, no, we never ended.
Seriously, and I want my community to have all of the information so that they can come here and they can have all of the rights bestowed upon them by our great constitution that I spent 6 years defending.
What would be the time frame that you basically defined?
Well, I mean, they knew I went
Not
to
for these meetings, because
For these?
for these meetings, it goes out at minimum 5 days, minimum. Again, and if you go to the website, you can click on the element and it'll bring up everything we see. So whatever gets presented here, we see. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, you click on a hyperlink at that point in time, 5 days ago, you would have been doing.
But I mean, I'm just saying, like, I went to the planning commission meeting on February 1st and both of these applicants were there and neither one, and like even Tri-County admitted on the record and in the application that he didn't contact the community, even though it's part of the bylaws for Tri-County Housing Development of Community Participation and they receive federal funds. So, I mean, this is like, it's unacceptable on a million different levels and.
Went on the record saying we were negligent on notification, and that was last Wednesday. Okay, so again, it's not as though we were just going through this. Okay, we held our board accountable and our executive director accountable saying, look, we gotta get this out to let people know, because again, I learned something from previous boards of Saturday. When the community comes and they appear in these meetings, people pay attention. I've been a lot of meetings, well, I appeared on that slide, and because we appear, it influenced.
I mean, if you want me to stop coming and being a part in everyone's side, then just do the right thing and engage the community. That's all I care about.
That's not what we're saying.
No.
Okay, that is not what's saying. It's just that you're passionate sometimes. And you're passionate when you make your point. Sometimes you get a little bit.
Well, that's what women are told all the time, and I'm not gonna let you finish that statement just for your own self-preservation.
Yes, ma'am.
But, community engagement is important and people need to have all the information.
Right, so.
Yeah.
So I have a question, right? So I hear what you're saying definitely about the community engagement part. So what would you see? And I know you're aligning this to what is the requirement, right? But what practically do you see as being solution, right? To, right, fix the things that you're talking about now.
The solution to fix the things that we're talking about now, that like, if, for one, that, you know, I know you don't have a role on the planning commission level, but if the planning commission, I don't understand why the planning commission is saying that it has to, community engagement has to happen before land development plan and skip over zoning, when this is the one that really has the legal teeth, right, is this body. So you're removing people's legal recourse by skipping over this whole process. And so the community engagement just, you know, if the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code says that community associations, neighborhood associations have standing. So if we have standing, then why are you able to say that community engagement isn't required if we have standing? It doesn't really make sense, does it?
We take it from a spirit that I'll ask, I said, look, did you talk to your people? Okay, again, if you haven't, I'll
Okay.
frame.
But then why, if that's the case, then why did you cut me off from making my comment when that's the point I was making?
You can't get personal attack.
It wasn't a personal attack. I didn't name anybody. I was reading, no.
Said lawyers. That's a general.
Oh, okay, because lawyers are that sensitive and they can't defend themselves.
All right.
I wasn't naming anybody personally. I was making a point as to the administration of justice and the Constitution, and that it, you know, underrepresented people have to be taken into consideration. That was the whole point of that.
So that one thing, so when I hear stuff like what you're saying, right, and I get some of it, and it sounds like it's more of the process or lack of, not lack of process, but I guess lack of standard or following a specific rule, right? Right. And here in the city, I think, is it city council or the mayor that makes those changes for ordinances and
It's the council that makes those
right.
changes.
So what I would do, if I felt so strongly as you do about this, I would go to city council and make suggestions on how maybe the process should be, if you feel like it should be in a different way, right? I think there are specific things, not necessarily saying this, but right within the city, or even myself, I feel like there's probably some ways that things should be done differently or requirements. So I think maybe that's the place for you to really try to enforce them making some changes. So maybe it will lead to a process where the community is heard more versus certain steps being, skipped to before, they have to hear about what's going on, if that's what you're feeling is going on.
This commission and the zoning hearing board follows the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. So both of those processes are mentioned in that. I mean.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So maybe that's what you state that to them to say, hey, if we're not following this order, then technically we could be in violation of these things, and then allow them to make a judgment if they feel something needs to change about it. I think I guess I'm saying that's why I feel like your efforts would be better heard and more effective, right, in making a change, because even here, if there's a complaint, we're not going to be the ones actually making the change for the process or the rule set or whatever. Like, we're just the ones here to enact on it, but we're not actually the ones that are empowered to make a change about it. So I'm just thinking of a way, right, to hear what you're saying and thinking of how it can really be effective. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.